happy for you to join us this evening. I want to recognize that this webinar is being shared from Treaty 1 territory, home of the Ojibwe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene nations, and homeland to the Red River Métis. Since this pandemic shift has changed the world as we knew it, there's been great communication between the Chamber network itself, but also the Chamber network and various levels of government. So for this evening, I want to express our appreciation to the federal government for listening to the concerns of the business community and enhancing their support programs as required. As we start to move our focus from economic stability to economic recovery, it's critical and important that we continue to have that same level of communication and collaboration, because that is what's truly essential to our country's success. And for that, I want to say welcome and thank you to Honourable Mary Ng, Minister of Small Business, Export Promotion and International Trade, for sharing her time with us this evening. Our community is very connected to small business owners, and we connect closely with the stress of what our entrepreneurs are going through right now. And so I also personally look forward to hearing the Minister speak about Canada's plan going forward to help small businesses get back on their feet. I'd also like to welcome and say thank you to Terry Duguid, the MP for Winnipeg South, and Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Economic Development and Official Languages, and the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Terry, I hand it off to you for opening remarks and a more appropriate introduction of Minister Ng. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jessica. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be with everyone across Manitoba tonight. And let me start by thanking the two chambers for co-hosting this event with the Honourable Mary Ng tonight. And let me also say that our two chambers have been incredible in their efforts to not only reach out to you, their members, but to reach out to us in the federal government. We've heard firsthand from your members and from your two presidents and your chair of some of the gaps, some of the adjustments that we've had to make. And it is through that feedback that we have been able to do better and make our programs more responsive to, we know, the big challenges that small business is facing. And it's great to have the Honourable Mary Ng with us today. And Minister Ng, may I say, is probably the most approachable, personable minister that I know. She's blushing right now, but there is an explanation for this, folks. And here it goes. The minister came to Canada from Hong Kong with her family in the 1970s. And she started her new life with her family right here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So that friendliness, that approachableness that we are all known for must have rubbed off. And Mary is not only an outstanding minister, but she is a great human being. She was elected as an MP for Markham Thornhill in April of 2017. She has 20 years of experience in the area of education, women's leadership, job creation, and entrepreneurship. Prior to being elected, she served in the Minister of Education's office as the Director of Policy in Ontario, the President's office in Ryerson University, and Director of Appointments for the Prime Minister in Ottawa. She was appointed as Minister of Small Business and Export Promotion in July 2018, and following the 2019 election, she was named Minister of Small Business, Export Promotion, and International Trade. I can assure you the Prime Minister picked the right person for this portfolio. She is a passionate advocate for small business. Please welcome the Honourable Mary Ng.
Well, Terry, thank you so very much. And Jessica, thank you as well. I too want to begin by acknowledging that Winnipeg is on Treaty 1 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation, and it's wonderful to be here with Terry, you, and with everyone from both of the chambers. You know, to to Lauren and to, to Chuck. I don't know if Chuck is on here, but everyone on the teams of both of the chambers, I echo what Terry has said. Thank you so much for your work, your advocacy, and the work that you are doing with Canadian businesses and bringing those issues to us. This is really an unprecedented, we are in a global pandemic, and it really is, unprecedented times. And we've had to get programs and supports out to Canadians very quickly, including so many of our small businesses. And the ability and the opportunity to hear directly from you so that we could be responsive, and as responsive as we need to be and will continue to be. I just really want to thank you for your, for your work. And Terry is no stranger to you, but as you were sort of describing the arrival into Winnipeg, I don't think I've ever forgotten that the license plates actually say "Friendly Manitoba." Right? I think it still says that today, probably, right? So I think I come by this quite legitimately by actually starting in Canada as a new immigrant and learning English. And probably one of the first things I learned in English was, what was on the license plate and continues to be, and that is Friendly Manitoba. So it's really great to be here. And you've got someone who, in my colleague, Terry Duguid, who serves as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister Joly on regional economic development, hugely important. But, at the heart and of his advocacy is his work for, for Winnipeg South, and of course for Manitoba. So you got a proud Manitoban there, and I hear from Terry all the time. So you should know I hear from Terry all the time, and it's wonderful. It really, really is. We've always said, throughout, we've always said this, and certainly throughout this, this crisis, what we've done and what we've tried to do is always stay very connected and closely to Canadians and to businesses, because we just know how difficult it is. We've asked Canadians across the country to do something very extraordinary, collectively, as Team Canada, so that we can put the health and safety of our fellow citizens as first priority. So we've all worked together to flatten the curve, and we have made progress, but we also don't want to lose that progress. And right from the very beginning, as we said, we have been listening to business owners and entrepreneurs so that we can create those supports that directly are supporting you to help you weather through this period, and get us on the road to recovery in a way that will give us sort of the best chance at rearing back. So I really want to thank you for giving me the opportunity tonight to talk to all of your members at both chambers. And if you take nothing away from this call, know that that the government stands with you, and we're going to keep working together, because that's what it's going to take. It's taken that to get us to where we are, and it's going to take us to come out of this as well. So we're going to keep working together so that we can weather this challenging time together. I'm just going to go through sort of very at the top highlights, because I actually think that everyone knows this, and then maybe spend most of the time on questions and having a conversation. But the measures that we have put into place really came directly from businesses, because what they said to us were essentially three large themes. Number one, we know how important teams are and your staff are to your businesses. So employers said, look, we've had to close our doors, or we're scaling back our operations so significantly, we're going to have to lay off people. And that isn't something we want, that isn't something we want you to have to face that difficulty with, which is why we introduced a 75% wage subsidy, so that employers can be helped with that very significant cost of keeping their teams together. We know that it's really important to keep employers and employees together, because those companies that are able to do that, those employers that are able to do that, have a better chance and are more resilient in the recovery. So that is that's sort of one one piece of support. And for those of you who didn't get to hear the Prime Minister or Terry or any of us talk about the wage subsidy recently, we announced just last week that we will be extending it beyond June. It was due to, be completed in June, but we know that recovery is going to, it's taking, the timing is different in different parts of the country because COVID-19 is experienced differently across the country. So we're going to extend that. Then the other thing we heard from businesses is that you have operating costs and you have expenses to pay. So you need some help with that as well. And in here, for small businesses, of course, it's $40,000 interest-free loan. $10,000 of that is forgivable if you're able to pay it back by the end of 2022. And that is the loans for the smallest of businesses. As of now, about actually over 580,000, so well over 500,000 business owners have had access to this loan. So that is certainly helping. I also know that there is more work to be done for some businesses that are, that are still looking for that support. And I just want businesses to know that we're continuing to work on that. And I hope to have more to say about that very soon. And then of course, the other expense that I know is we've heard so much from businesses is about commercial rent and making sure that you're getting help on commercial rent. So for those businesses that are hardest hit, we are introducing the commercial rent assistance program, which is a 75% reduction for commercial rent for those businesses that have rent of less than $50,000 a month. That I think will really be helpful. And just earlier this week, the finance minister and the prime minister announced that there also needs to be assistance for companies who are significant employers. Again, to the idea of needing to keep our employers and our workers with jobs. We announced support for the larger companies through the large employer emergency financing facility, and we've expanded the business credit availability program. So this is for businesses that are the larger small businesses or medium-sized businesses, and certainly for the large businesses, where we are working with them to make sure that they're supported. And we know that businesses aren't, it's not a one-size-fits-all. We have high growth businesses. We have businesses that have, that are owned and operated by these incredible Indigenous entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. So whether it is support for Indigenous businesses through my colleague, Minister Miller, or Futurepreneur that's working with young businesses, or the regional development agencies and community futures. So in WD, that support is coming out for, just a whole spectrum of businesses, so that support is really there for all of our businesses. And I just, maybe I won't take too much here, because I think I do want to get to questions. But the one last thing I would say is we are focused on making sure that, that Canadian businesses are supported. As the Minister of International Trade, it's also to work with my colleagues in the G20 countries, through the World Trade Organization, with APEC in the Asia Pacific, and just and just global partners to make sure that our supply chains continue to stay open, particularly for critical medical supplies, for agricultural products, and just essential products and services, so that and personnel, so that those global supply chains continue to stay open during this period, is something that I continue to work on with my with our trading partners across the globe. And there is still more work to be done. So this work is not yet done. There's more work to do, and we're going to keep doing this together. And maybe with that, I will I will pause, and we can start having a conversation. But just know that we're going to keep working together. And I always sort of like to say, we've got your back, and we're just going to have to keep doing this. And I think we will get through this, but we'll do it together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very exciting introduction. I'm excited about this. I'm going to invite Lauren Remillard and Chuck Davidson, who are the president and CEOs of the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce and the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce, to kick off the Q&A.
Thank you, Jessica. Pleased to, again, thank you very much, Ministering, as well as Terry Duguid for joining us today. I will say this, Minister, you actually have a tremendous role in your portfolio, because one of the things that we've heard from a lot of the larger corporate community is one of the best things any government can do to support larger business is to support small and mid-sized companies, because they're the ones that are supplying the larger companies. So this has really demonstrated conclusively just how vital small business is. So you might have small business in your title, but you're the Minister of Business. So thank you very much for your efforts. You talked about wages, and I'm going to jump to right away, kind of a subset, but labor market data shows women have experienced a disproportionate share of lost jobs and lost work hours during the pandemic. Some, of course, have referred to this economic decline as she-cession. I worked on that one. One of your mandates as minister is to create a women entrepreneurship strategy. How will that play a part in Canada's recovery strategy and help build more resilient employment options for women?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, Lauren, and it's really, really important. I am, I'm very proud that I get to lead the portfolio that also has in my mandate to double the number of women entrepreneurs in the country. And of course, before COVID-19, we're all working sort of, on all cylinders, and we were really making progress. I'm very confident we will continue to make that progress. And I've talked to a lot of women entrepreneurs across the country. We have, of course, ecosystems of support, both regionally and nationally, for women entrepreneurs to help them navigate through what is difficult for women entrepreneurs. Some of the barriers that exist, whether it's getting access to lending or access to, sort of the right networks in order to help their business grow. You talk about small and medium-sized businesses as being sort of, the supply chain to help those, to supply and to work with bigger enterprises. Well, women entrepreneurs are a part of that. But here's what I would say during this period. It has been really difficult. It's been really difficult because as we are at home and self-isolating, doing what we all need to do to make sure the health of Canadians are first and foremost, it's taken a toll. Women still in Canada, I would also say globally, they still tend to take the disproportionate portion of caregiving duties and looking after the household. So you can imagine what the challenges are when you are, when your kids are at home and you are taking on that responsibility as a mom. And for those that are caregiving, that responsibility for elderly parents or, or loved ones. And you've got a business, and you've got a great business. And right now that business is in, there's an entire spectrum of challenges and just difficulties during this crisis, and keeping your business afloat and making sure that you are accessing the various supports and just keeping it going. So it's been tough for female entrepreneurs. So I am keeping a very close eye. I know that our ecosystems are working overtime. I know that what we've also had to pay attention is is mental health for everyone, including female-owned businesses. But there's also another side that most don't want to talk about because it's uncomfortable, but it's important to talk about because it's there and it needs to be supported, and it's those supports as well that's going to help women entrepreneurs and female-led businesses through this, and that is making sure that we are supporting, and we are doing this through a $50 million support to women's shelters and to sexual assault centers, so that they can manage the capacity to prevent any outbreaks in their facilities, but also to make sure that they are providing the necessary support and services. So I know this answer is a little long, but it's long because it's really important. I am very confident that we will get back on track, and that these incredible female leaders are going to help me meet my target of doubling the number of female entrepreneurs. And pre-COVID, the numbers were that we were going to add $150 billion to the Canadian economy, just simply by adding women to the Canadian economy. The number may change, but this hasn't changed. The contribution of women entrepreneurs into the Canadian economy, you are going to see job growth, and we are going to see a benefit to Canadian communities because of that. So I'm looking forward to working and continuing to working with the women owners, across the country on this very, very important work that we need to do ahead.
Minister Ng, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And I'm wondering as well, here in Manitoba, that we started to reopen our economy about 10 days ago, and I think it's been clear that there are some specific industries and some sectors that are more impacted than others. And specifically, I will talk about the food services and hospitality and tourism are going to be more impacted than others in terms of what this recovery looks like and how quickly they can get back to what they were pre-COVID. So I'm wondering as well, the federal government has done a good job of outlining a number of programs that all businesses can access to be able to keep them afloat and keep them liquid. But is the government looking in terms of sector-specific programs for some of these industries that we know are going to take a lot longer to get back to normal? And I'm just wondering if you can maybe provide comments if there's something specific for arts and culture, sports, tourism that you might be thinking on the horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. A very good question, and maybe I'll just start at the very beginning, which is around the restart. I mean, COVID-19 has no question been a challenge and been difficult for all of us across the country, and different parts of the country have experienced it differently because of how COVID-19 sort of spread differently across the country. So I think it's really important, to make sure that in the restart, and I've certainly heard this from businesses as well, that we stay coordinated, the federal government and the provinces, together with business, because we want to make sure we don't lose the progress that we have made, because it really has been a sacrifice for so many people and for Canadians that the opening up has to be done in a way that is careful, and that doesn't erode the progress that has been made for businesses. So I think that's point number one. You'll see that in so many of our measures that we have contemplated, because we've listened directly to business, to the range of supports that are needed. And maybe before I sort of talk about the, sort of the more sector specific or what we're sort of looking at sort of in, going into the future, I might just have Terry sort of weigh in here. We just announced today the work, which is almost about $1 billion. It's over $1 billion to help our businesses through this. So, as the Parliamentary Secretary for Economic Development and Regional Economic Development, Terry, maybe you could talk about that part of it, and then I can sort of pick up after you've had an opportunity to sort of explain that.
Sure. Thanks, Minister. We have regional development agencies across the country, as everyone knows. We have proudly the Western Economic Diversification, which has offices in all Western provinces. And the Minister is correct. Some weeks ago, or about 14 days ago or so, the Prime Minister and Minister Joly made an announcement that there would be a fairly hefty allocation of funding for our regional development agencies to really take care of those businesses that were falling through the cracks. And some of them are in that space that Chuck just talked to. These folks, for one reason or another, these business owners didn't meet the criteria. They weren't eligible for some of the many programs that we had available. And so today, while there was a general announcement a few weeks ago, the details of that were announced today, and Western Diversification is going to receive $304 million of that almost $1 billion. And this is really representative of the growing population in the West, but also the needs. And as you know, in Western Canada, we have some challenges with oil and gas and with some of the other resource sectors. For Western Canada, $208 million is going to be for Western Diversification to support two major programs. The option, and again, this is for folks who haven't met the criteria of the CEBA, the Canada Emergency Benefit Bank Account. And the same sort of rules apply. Option one, this is a loan of up to $40,000, conditionally repayable. It will be interest-free, and like the CEBA loan, $10,000 will be forgivable. But Western Diversification, they have a very granular view of local economies. They know the people, they know the local conditions. And so they are going to try and find a way to support your businesses, whereas some of the other programs that we've introduced do not support all businesses. Also, between 40,000 and 1 million in non-conditional repayable loans for folks who are in that different category. Who need more funds than the $40,000. Those will be larger businesses who have fallen between the cracks. And just to say, as Mary said at the outset, we're trying to be flexible. We're trying to meet the needs of all businesses. And the tourism, the hospitality sector has really been hard hit. And hopefully this addresses some of their needs. And what small businesses should do is just reach out to Western Diversification, and they will, I'm sure, sit down with you virtually and see if they can help.
And Terry, those programs, they'll be administered by the Community Futures organizations throughout rural Manitoba as well, correct? Yeah,
thank you. I forgot to mention the other element of that program. So of the 304 million, 208 is directly the delivery is directly through WD in the form of loans, that option one, that option two that I just mentioned. But $96 million will be devoted to the Community Futures organizations. There are 90 of those across Western Canada, so they're in every part of our province. Again, they're locally based, they know the local conditions, they will often know the individual businesses. They have volunteer boards who are just wonderful volunteers at this very difficult time, and they are going to be there, particularly for those businesses who haven't qualified for any of our programs to date, to see if they can help you.
Thank you, Terry. Minister, I know our time's limited here. I want to provide two comments and then a quick question with the other element of your portfolio being trade. But I would like to encourage you to connect with Alison Kirkland. She is the CEO of the Women's Enterprise Organizations of Canada. She is here in Winnipeg and on the call. They do tremendous work there, so I would highly encourage you to connect with Alison. As well, just a comment, it's not necessarily a question, but one of the comments we've been hearing extensively as it relates to for small mid-size, more mid-size, mind you, is the BCAP program is significantly restrictive. The comment is hopefully the government will be working to ensure BDC's lending underwriting criteria are amended to ensure dollars flow to entities that need the assistance. So I'm going to leave that comment with you. My question, and again, sorry to push the time, is, sorry, did you want to?
Yeah, no, it's good.
The question is really around, again, the trade side of your portfolio. We know that the world will change. The trading relationships, supply chains, we're hearing a lot about nearshoring and so forth. So from your vantage, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts as to how you see the world trading relationship, Canada's place in it vis-a-vis our trading partners. How is that evolving? How are you helping drive it? And are you anticipating significant return back to Canada of domestic production in the wake of what we've seen with supply chains?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, in response to the pandemic, of course, what we have had to do is procure, on the one hand, as much PPE as we possibly can. that would include, equipment, but also, masks, ventilator, gowns, and all, sort of the entire range. But we also stood up Canada's manufacturing capability, where so many Canadian companies have retooled their operations in order to meet the immediate needs of the pandemic. But as the trade minister, I continue to work with my international partners. The Prime Minister with the leaders of the G20, this is now in middle of March, sort of end of March, committed to making sure that, that the importance of trade and global supply chains remain open. And that to the extent that there are measures that were going to be restrictive, that were going to be put up by countries during this time, that they would be temporary, that they would be transparent, and that we would, we would find a way to make sure that we remove those barriers, as soon as possible, as we're coming out of COVID-19. Canada is a trading country, and those access to customers in the global marketplace is really important to Canadian businesses. And Canadian businesses are looking for predictability of where they're able to continue to export and continue to do business with what jurisdictions. So that is very much my work. I think that in the space of about a month now, maybe just in the last 6 weeks, I've probably issued together with whether it's the G20 countries, whether it is with APEC, whether it is with the WTO members, probably about 6 or 7 statements that essentially commits and recommits are the need for global supply chains to remain open, and that investment and global investment, particularly in Canada, continues to be very important. So while during this time, of course, it's incredible to see the enormous leadership and the resilience of Canadian businesses in retooling to meet the health challenge of our people. That's incredible, and that is excellent. But we also continue, and I continue to demonstrate Canada's leadership globally so that critical agricultural supplies and agri-products moves into the global marketplace, and that medication continues to come in, and those supplies that we rely on continue to come into Canada. So we're going to keep doing this work. Canada, as I said, is a trading country, and we're going to have to continue to do this work in the globe, and working with multilateral rules-based systems like the World Trade Organization to ensure that some of the measures that have been put up, some of the barriers that might have been put up during this time, are temporary in nature, and that we facilitate that transparency so that they do come down, and that we provide that kind of predictability of trading for our Canadian companies, that so many of whom work abroad, and as the minister responsible for both international trade and small businesses, to increasingly also get access to our Canadian small and medium-sized businesses into those supply chains, which of course are Canadian large companies, but those companies also do business globally. So making sure that we continue to do that work in this recovery, I think, is really important, and I'm committed to doing it.
Minister Ng, I know you have very limited time and you've only got a couple minutes left with us. So I wonder if I can ask one final question. One of the other big issues that we're hearing from a lot of small business has to do with rent. Obviously the commercial rent assistance program, we've been hearing some challenges with it from landlords not accessing it, not passing that on to a number of tenants. So I'm wondering if the federal government has been open to making some changes on other programs. And I'm wondering if you're looking at potentially retooling that and allowing potentially the dollars to flow to the tenants rather than the landlords, to be able to see if we can address some of these challenges. So I'd just be interested in your comments on that program.
Yeah, very, very good question. And we have been hearing feedback, particularly from businesses who are worried that they're not going to get the 75% rent assistance that we said they would. Of course, the applications are like, we're just almost ready at getting those out to landlords. So right now, we don't know the take up, but I'm very encouraged, and I would encourage landlords to take advantage of this, because of course rent is not a federal area of responsibility, but we've worked very hard with our provincial and territorial counterparts to make sure that we are supporting our businesses. It's very important for our businesses to get that support. It's a key expense, and the reason this program is there is so that the businesses are getting the help, and it's a win-win. I mean, I think the landlords want to see their premise continue to be occupied, and having our businesses supported during this period will go a long ways to making sure that they can continue their business. And I think that that's what landlords want as well. You know, many of whom, of course, are business owners themselves. So so I would encourage landlords to take advantage of of the program. You will get 50% of of this back in forgivable loans. Your small business tenant will pay the 25%. It really is something that is really beneficial to the landlords, and certainly the help needs to go to our small businesses who are really suffering right now. And as always, we will pay close attention. We will always pay close attention, because our commitment really has been to support our businesses and our small businesses all the way along this, and this won't be different.
Great, thank you so much. We're definitely squeezing out as much time as possible as we can. I want to say thank you so much to Lauren and Chuck for leading us through the Q&A, and also taking the leadership to lead these conversations in this vital time. That's really important for us to do that. Thank you very much to Minister Ng, and thank you to MP Duguid for joining us. I'd like to offer, if you just want a quick goodbye note, feel free to say a final comment.
Well, I want to thank everyone for letting me be here, but Terry, please.
Oh, you're on mute, Terry.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm getting the hang of Zoom after being on it about 4 or 5 hours a day. But anyway, I just want to again thank all of you. Thank you, Jessica. Thank Chuck and Lauren for your community leadership. We are a very close-knit community here in Winnipeg and in Manitoba, and we are a friendly sort, as Mary mentioned. And I would just say that if there are issues that you think need attention in a local context, don't hesitate to reach out to me. To my office, give me a call. I think Chuck, Lauren, you have my personal cell numbers, and really just to thank Mary for addressing a Winnipeg and Manitoba-based audience today. She is listening. She's a terrific minister that I have the privilege to work with, and I really want to thank her for being with us tonight.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Everyone stay well, and I hope the next time we do this, we will do this in person again.
Thank you. We sure hope for that as well. A great opportunity to spend with each of you, so thank you so much. I want to thank everyone on the call and to our chambers for your commitment to supporting Canada's businesses throughout this recovery. So I hope that everyone has a great and safe evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.